Hi everyone. Who loves Yaml? This is not a trick question, or we might get back to that. So let's see. Obviously, the title is coming from whatever is considered harmful. And I was once told after the talk that every talk calling itself considered harmful is also harmful. So this is kind of very meta here. But stay with me. Why is Yaml maybe the not most loved technology? So what you can do is, or why did we get to it? The first thing is why we got to Yaml is it's kind of human readable. And it allows comments. And the human readable excluded XML, at least for most of us. And the comments mostly excluded JSON, where you don't have comments. So that's why we got Yaml. It is whitespace sensitive, which depending on where you're coming from, if you're doing Ruby or Python, you think this is the only proper way to do stuff. If you're doing C, Java, .NET, whatever, you think it's a devil and it has no place whatsoever. And it's a terrible idea. But we will stay balanced on that and say, like, it depends a bit for us here. So, who knows what is going wrong here? You try to do a port mapping, for example, in Docker, and you try to map port 80 to port 80 and port 20 to port 20. And something will break and act very weirdly here. Does anybody know what? Yeah, so what happens is, when you run that through YAML-lint, for example, a parser, what you will end up with is this, like 80 to 80 is mapped fine, but 20 to 20 is not mapped fine at all, because YAML has this interesting thing. If you have the syntax, you have a number colon another number. If that first number is less than 60, it assumes it's base 60. And that's how you got to this number here. So this was a different base. So be careful. If you do any port mappings below 60 in Docker or anywhere else, use a lot of quotation marks. Otherwise, you will have not so much fun. This one is, thanks to syntax highlighting, pretty clear already. I think this is one of 11, 12, 13, whatever ways to have a truthy or falsy value in YAML. So you have lots of options, like it can be 0, 1, true, false, yes, no, whatever. There are a lot of values that can be evaluated truthy or falsy. So be careful with that one, because you have a nice list of countries and then you have false in there. Other things where you might run into fun problems is, suddenly you have somebody without a name, that is null. The second one will actually throw a syntax error, and you probably didn't mean to have version number 1 floating value, because you wanted to have a string here for the version number. So these are all common things you will run into with YAML. So YAML is not always fun to use. But for data, it's kind of okay, where I think what we should really not do is to use it for structure or templating, because there you will run into problems. For example, if you want to bootstrap GitLab, they have this little monster there that has 1,000 lines of YAML to bootstrap itself. If this wasn't bad enough, what you will actually see when you look into this is that this, in turn, actually calls shell scripts. So you have 1,000 lines of YAML to bootstrap more shell scripts. So you get the best of all the worlds together, basically. You probably don't want to go there. Or if you look at help templates, you see funny stuff like, oh, you have an include there. And that include should be intended by 4 spaces. So you have great structures like this, which nobody really wants to read or write. So this is kind of showing you that maybe this was not made for templating in the first place. If you want to use a DSL, use a DSL, because those are supposed to be pretty good at what they are doing nowadays. So you don't need YAML for everything. If you don't want to use YAML, what are your alternatives? XML, maybe for the dinosaurs here, but most people don't really want to have all the Angular brackets anymore. So what could you use instead? You could have JSON, and then you need to try to introduce like fake elements for comments, which are also not where you want to go. You could use ini. Anybody remembers ini? Those used to be popular as well, but have their own set of problems. For example, I think on Windows, they are not case sensitive, and you don't have any sense of hierarchy. For example, to have 2 sets of servers, I just give them longer names to make disambiguation. Toml sounds nice, but they, again, don't really have much hierarchy. Like the whitespace indentation at the bottom, that's just purely optional and doesn't mean anything in Toml. So it might be an improvement or not, but as you can see, also no syntax highlighting for this one here in my slides, because it's not so widely supported, so also problematic. If you want to have the worst of all, IBM has you covered. because they basically married XML and JSON, and that's what you get out of that one here. So we have JSON-X, which might be a great solution or not. Or maybe you just want to go back to a programming language. For example, if you look at Pulumi, their main feature is that they're using a programming language or support multiple programming languages, which if you told that a couple of years ago to somebody like the main feature of something is that it supports a programming language, nobody would have believed it. But now we're back at that stage where this is a feature. So who still loves YAML? Be careful when you do your YAML. Thanks a lot.